A double standard that was really quite glaring from the very first hours of this incident is now playing out on a systemic level that's so familiar in our U.S. justice system. Now, this was a major part of the initial response to the attacks. We should note there was much police work being done. There were strong and heroic patrols by some officers, but also a level of restraint and at times warmth, including selfies, that's just not extended to other far more peaceful situations, which was called out by many at the time.
Guarantee you, if that was a Black Lives Matter protest in D.C., there would already be people shackled, arrested, or dead.
Had these been Black Lives Matter protesters storming the Capitol of the United States, I think that there may have been hundreds of people killed.
This is America. This is the double standard that many would rather not face. On the left, the police rendering aid to people in a crowd while they were still actively breaking the law. On the right, police treating black and brown people and other BLM supporters.
If this was black people, these would be dead bodies.
Now, while some of the federal response in the moments and the hours of that Capitol insurrection did stem from the political agenda of the president in charge at the time, I want to tell you tonight's news includes an ongoing double standard that persists even though, as everyone knows, there's a new president and administration in charge. And the reason is important. If you hear nothing else tonight, hear this. The reason has to do with the very substantive point pressed by so many Black Lives Matter protesters over this last year and so many other legal experts. If the problem we're dealing with is truly systemic, then only deep changes to the underlying system will make true improvements, not the election or changing of a single person, even one as important as the president. Now look at the examples that continue to come out as news tonight. Examples that relate to double standards in the law and how prosecutors and judges apply it. And these are not things one president can change overnight. That's not my point. But you have to understand what's happening to then decide in a democracy if you want to change it. And reforming federal laws could help. Consider first, as a comparison, the BLM protests in Washington this summer, last year, when, of course, no one ever trespassed into a Capitol. There were not dead officers, but D.C. police arrested 289 people there in one day of BLM protests, 427 over 4 days, while they made just 41 arrests on the day of the insurrection amidst a national security breach that the U.S. hadn't seen since 1812. Even if you take the larger count of arrests outside the Capitol, it would hit 68, but 41 at that Capitol violent attack itself. Now, you can update the number to 181 arrests, still relatively low when you look at the thousands involved on tape. And 1/3 of those are out on supervised release. They're walking free. If you take a broader look, there are many well-documented racial disparities that persist now in use of force. Black people more likely to be shot by police than their, quote, white peers. The kind of fact driving the outcry at a racial double standard of the Capitol Police in the insurrection. And laws that can be written as general rules are being enforced now since January 6th to discriminate. An example is a Florida town that's been patrolling dueling BLM and Proud Boys protests, but, quote, police started enforcing a rarely used noise ordinance only for Black Lives Matter protesters, not conservative protesters, at the very same site. In that story, I want to show you something tonight. This is since the insurrection, and here is the mayor there admitting the racial disparity.
We talked with Newport Richie's mayor. Here's who he's putting the onus on.
The Black Lives Matter people ratcheted up the volume. It attracted some of the people from the other extreme of the spectrum.
What you have there is a journalist explaining these were mostly peaceful protests, and the mayor explaining that after he saw that there were basically Black Lives Matter protesters and then counter-protesters, that's his defense for, as the Post reports, only arresting the BLM protesters. Now, I should note, those charges were actually later dropped. Apparently, they didn't have much merit, but many other areas are now pushing more and new laws to patrol protests in ways that would actually increase the systemic injustices that I'm reporting on for you. Now, take another case stemming from January 6th, Jenny Cutt. She was in the Capitol during the insurrection, so she was on tape breaking federal law. She was arrested and charged for violent entry and disorderly conduct. She was released after that, so she's walking free, and now she's planning a trip to Mexico, asking a judge To do so, she calls it a work-related bonding trip, and she was on tape bragging about that alleged federal felony.
We did break down the Nancy Pelosi's office door, and somebody stole her gavel and took a picture sitting in the chair, flipping off the camera. I'm proud of everything that I was a part of today, and I'll be proud of everything that I'm a part of at the next one.
That's a confession of breaking an entry and a conspiracy to steal, and she's proud, but she wants to go somewhere like this and travel abroad in Mexico while she awaits trial. Contrast that to a story you may remember, Sandra Bland. Sandra Bland was a 28-year-old woman, black woman. She was pulled over for a routine traffic stop in 2015 in Texas. Why? Well, the allegation was she failed to signal for a lane change. That was literally why she was pulled over. Unlike some of these people indicted for the Capitol insurrection, she didn't get to walk free. She was arrested that day. She was taken into custody. She was jailed after that traffic stop, and she was held there for 3 days on the traffic stop. She later was found dead in her cell under what many thought were suspicious circumstances. Now, the officer involved in that stop, by the way, was fired. No one was convicted of wrongdoing. But this side-by-side contrast is crucial. It's happening now in America. It continues to happen. It is the context for something that is so much more systemic than one election or one bit of outrage or the stories people share sometimes about anecdotes. It's a system that continues to press unequal justice based on race, among other issues, and dares the rest of us to decide if we're ever going to do something about it. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.